The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask is very special to me. I have never played a game so radically unique in all of my years of gaming. The combination of its heavy focus side quest related content, the time/day mechanics, captivating yet alive world, everything encompassed has landed a special place in my heart. Flashback to around 2012, I just beat Majora's Mask for the first time. Man, what a journey. I remember this game was challenging and a darker Zelda game from Ocarina of Time, but not entirely grim thanks to its art style. The more I thought about it, the more I solidified this game was my favorite game of all time. But it wasn't really clear to me, however. I never really took the time to realize why though. Was it the side quests and their character interactions? Was it because it felt consolatory? Was it the burning passion of friendships I have made along the way? Well, to be honest, it's all of the above. I have done a recent playthrough of Majora's Mask and I finished it around end of May 2023. This video is to talk about my experience and recap some of the things that have happened and to help myself identify why this game still remains at the top of my list. Think of it like a review and personal retrospective almost. Lastly, before we start, if you guys haven't subscribed yet and would like to stay a bit longer, please press that red button as it really helps grow the channel. With that out of the way, So I want to go over the overarching story really quick. As a sequel to Ocarina of Time, we start off with Link on a journey to find his fairy, Navi. Things go south rather quickly when a strange skull kid decides to yoink Epona, aka Link's horse, plus our items, but we urgently chase after. We eventually meet up with Skull Kid and he absolutely trolls us, and he transforms Link into a Deku. Additionally, we team up with one of Skull Kid's fairy to get back her brother. We continue chase and wander off into this land called Termina. Pretty soon, we find the Happy Mask salesman indirectly responsible for everything that is happening, and he asks us to retrieve Majora's Mask back for him. And eventually, we do get to a point where we square off with Skull Kid. He pulls on an "oh shit" moment, and he calls the power of his freaking ugly moon upon us to destroy the entirety of Termina. But before he can do that, we knock one of our items out of his hand, our ocarina, and we get a flashback of Zelda teaching us how to play the Song of Time, reversing time as a whole to when the first day of this incident happened. So we arrive back to day one and we meet with the Happy Mask salesman again, who thinks that we've retrieved the mask and decides to help us return back to our human body, only to realize that he got trolled and we didn't get it back, and he goes. Something important during the fight with Skull Kid is that the Brother Fairy mentions that Link needs to go to each direction of the cardinal coordinates, the swamp, mountains, beach, and canyon, in order to summon the guardians that will help stop the upcoming cataclysmic moon. And essentially that is the setup for the entire game. Each area has its own issues created by Skull Kid. So for example, the swamp has gone poisonous and the princess is believed to be kidnapped. The mountain, for example, is mad icy. Ice! Let's go! No, not that kind of ice. It's very snowy and the Gorons are freezing basically to death. The Great Bay Area, they have unnatural waters, and the canyon is overrun by spirits of the dead. I love the world of this game. I love the lore, and honestly, the story setup is good, but it just doesn't feel like a Zelda game, and it's almost like out of context and a little bit too extra, but that's also why I love it. However, as much as I like it, that doesn't stop it from being objectively lacking. The story progression itself feels a bit hollow to me. Firstly, the mask salesman. He remembers Majora's Mask and all the events even after reversing time, and it's not even explained in the slightest, like who is this man? Secondly, a little more depth about Majora's Mask would have been nice. All we know about it is that it's some sort of cursed tribe mask in the good old ancient days, but besides that, I couldn't find anything else relating to why the curse behaves the way it does. We get small insights towards the end of the game when you reach the inside of the moon and you see this game's weird. We see miniature mask salesman with Majora's Mask insinuating childish and lonely behavior, but from what I can tell, this could literally mean anything. Is this supposed to portray the happy mask salesman and all of his mask's power, and that he was the true issue all along? But we obviously see Majora's Mask is acting a little bit different, or maybe I'm thinking too hard about it. Lastly, there's just not enough dungeons objectively. 4 main areas, 4 temples. That's it. Compare that to its predecessor, Ocarina of Time, which had a total of 12, and it seems like a bit of a downgrade. Luckily, I think all the dungeons in this game are amazing, and I love 3 out of the 4 bosses. 4 out of 5 if you include the finale, but I'm just looking at the game in comparison to what we do have in terms of Zelda games. Honestly, no matter what game even is my favorite, there is always room for improvement. And although the story essentially begins and ends with the moon and mask, we eventually end the game with an awesome final fight. I believe the real journey genuinely starts when you start to dive deeper into the world of Termina. Now, it might have seemed like I kinda dislike the main story of my proclaimed favorite game of all time, and although I don't think it is the strong suit of the game, that isn't why I play Majora's Mask. Everything else around the story defines Majora's Mask. The world and atmosphere, the side quests, time mechanics, and mask collecting. I have learned that everything just mentioned feels like comfort food to me. It is the meat and potatoes of this game. You're probably wondering, hey Billy, how can some of these intangible things mean so much to you? Let me lay down the foundation for you. I need to talk about Termina as a whole. No matter what, time is ticking and people just have their own issues that they want fulfilled without any regrets. We have people politically debating whether or not this so-called demise is truly a fallacy or not. We have a kid that wants to protect their farm so that the aliens don't take their cows. We have a singer who lost her voice due to a tragic loss of her offsprings. This world has people and inhabitants. I think I have such a deep connection with this game because it is the embodiment of, in the midst of darkness, light persists. And although Termina is depicted in this oddly grim and colorfulness, no matter how bad times are, we never really want for things to end on a bad note and to live with these burdens. There are also moments of pure heartfelt that really touched me that I only recently learned about on this playthrough. On the last day, I went around talking to NPCs, and specifically at the milk bar, this guy says he wished to see his favorite customer on this day, and his wish was fulfilled when I walked in. You being the light for Termina, you are able to tend the wounds for everyone and hear everyone's thoughts and stories. Many being so sad, of course, and not everyone wants such a low-tone game to play, but it's the feeling of helping those even in hard times. And Song of Healing, a song you learn typically to tend the soul, is the icing on the cake that makes this such a poetic concept to me. These side quests are an extension of the world and concept that I just mentioned. Let's start with this banger, the Anju and Cafe quest. These two lovebirds made an oath to marry each other on the day of the Carnival of Time, which is also coincidentally the day the moon will wreak havoc. But because of Majora's Mask's powers, he turned Cafe into a kid and went into hiding. This story is about reunion and happy ever after. This is also a quest that develops over the entire 3-day time period, and by the end of it, you witness their marriage. And who's cutting onions again, man? Just as Guraga says, this quest is a true testament to eternal love, and the way Anju is simply overwhelmed by Cafe's disappearance, and despite his new disability, Cafe tries everything he can to reunite them. And man, if this isn't what real romance or love is to you, I don't know what is. On a completely different yet cohesive note, the marriage quest is also intertwined with the postman quest. This guy is dedicated to his job, man. Because of Anju and Cafe, we are able to give him a high priority letter to deliver and feel fulfilled at the end of the day. Even though this whole thing takes a matter of minutes to do, and it's on the last day before the moon falls, the payoff made me feel so happy because the recipient genuinely cares about his well-being, not to get stuck on a job, and it's okay to finally be free and make his own schedule and decisions. She directs him to leave, and even on the most grim day, she too felt joyous to receive a letter. Okay, I got one last one. Although more renowned, this one hurts me the most. The Deku Butler's son. Everyone talks about this, but I feel like I cannot not mention it, as it describes the overall vibe and tone for Majora's Mask. Long story short, after you finish the first temple, the princess and the monkey say, meet the butler at the back of the palace. You end up going through his honestly crazy and perfectly challenging maze/race, and when you meet him at the end to claim your mask, he also mentions that he used to race like this with his son, and doing so reminded him. We literally don't hear about this the rest of the game. Cut to the end of the credits, we see him at the beginning of the game, at the Deku statue, crying. Majora's Mask took his soul and almost deformed him and left a hollow figure in his place. The context clues are superb yet very sadistic. I would like to compare this to a game that recently came out actually, Final Fantasy 16. I feel like the world in that game is truly realized, and it keeps on pushing the viewers down with the major themes of slavery and darkness, and I feel like I have to be in a certain mood for something like that. There is a balance in Termina, and I think the time mechanics and mask collecting attribute to it nicely. Although a lot of people dislike specifically the time mechanic, I think of it like this. I quite dislike the feeling of when RPGs or larger games have a day and night cycle with an expansive world, and you can exclusively miss content based off the story progression. I know within Majora's Mask that I have exactly 3 days to learn and see everything that's closely knit together. A little bit of a hot take, but I really believe that the 3-day mechanic is more of a relaxing concept to me. Very much contrary to everything that I've said about the atmosphere and brutal reality of Termina. But it does make me happy when I get to know everyone again in such a short amount of time. Sure, it can get a bit annoying when you're waiting around for certain events to happen, but I don't know, I take that time to kind of appreciate the quest I'm doing even more. And lastly, we have the mask collecting, and it isn't grand or anything, it's more of a novelty. But why is it whenever I get a mask, it doesn't feel like a token, but yet a hug whenever I help someone? Don't get me wrong, many of the main masks are awesome, and including the stories behind them, I see many of them as a means to get small goodies like heart pieces. And that isn't a bad thing by any means, considering it takes away, even for just a moment, the thought of a consistently despaired world. In fact, as a player that is actively trying to beat this game over again, it feels like I've come back home. I'm going out of my script a little bit, and I'm just going to spiel a little bit as to why I have such fond connections to this game. The music, the bosses, the glitches, and lastly, it just comes down to the hard nostalgia. This soundtrack slaps. I can literally listen and recall near all of these themes. We got rinky-dink medieval palace music. We got peak atmosphere with the stone temple. And my favorite track is When the Last Day of Desperation Begins, which I have already used inside this video. And man, the temples. I mean, the water temple, kinda the only one that isn't like, all that. But Woodfall Temple, Snowhead Temple, and the Stone Temple are amazing. Snowhead and Stone Temple specifically, as they have their own little gimmicks to them that make me just freaking want more. Breaking a center pillar to continue traversing, it's genius. And then flipping the whole temple and playing through it again with a new lens is just phenomenal. And the bosses, literally they have a boss named Goat and George. What more do you need? In my opinion, Majora's Mask is my favorite boss experience and fight ever that I have gotten a chance to play in any game. I played this as a kid and was like, what the absolute fuck is this strange, intense, awesome fight? Phase 1 is just a mask, it's kind of plain, but Phase 2, this guy's a damn monkey. Look at his Russian kicks. I can't make this shit up. Phase 3 is perfectly challenging in the ultimate climactic battle. All of these confused emotions and vibes given off from this guy was immaculate to Little Billy, and man, even now, the glitches. It sounds a bit weird to put this type of content into like a reflection-like video, but growing up, finding glitches and exploits were one of my favorite pastimes. There was a glitch in Majora's Mask that kind of defeated the purpose of the game, the 4th day glitch. Instead of Termina getting nuked by the moon, if you went to the Astral Observatory on the last day, used the telescope and exited it within like 5 to 10 milliseconds, the moon would cease to fall. Why does that work? I don't know, but I have the footage because it's so fun for me. Additionally, I would go to all these places and just realize the game was not built for this state and most NPCs basically dipped, and it's kind of scary and adds to that atmosphere. Also, I used hacks when I beat the game because why not? I don't know. Another glitch was doing the Fierce Deity mask outside of bosses. You get the best mask in the game, the Fierce Deity mask, by collecting all the masks and talking to the Happy Salesman kids. You can only wear it during boss fights, which sucks, but it's super overpowered. This glitch involves item swapping in a shallow pool of water, which allows you to use any mask you want. It didn't really work the way I thought it would because of this emulator. Like, it completely broke my controller and Link would just keep slashing for hours on end. I would try to get it to work and then it just continuously breaks. So I don't know, but it was fun while it lasted. Lastly, my nostalgia is so strong and fond of Majora's Mask because of the surrounding YouTubers and culture I grew up watching. I watched a ton of Chugga Conroy and Peanut Butter Gamer growing up, and everything just became really sentimental to me. Watching their Let's Plays and parodies was cathartic and really helped cement a connection between me and this particular Zelda game. Most people know about the story, but the creepypasta for Ben Drowned was so unique and iconic to me at the time. A haunted video game that tried to tell a story through gameplay, and the figure that represents and ties the whole thing together is this monstrosity. To the common eye, most people would think that it's too much and abstract. This is a perfect meld for me. I mentioned previously some slight inconsistencies or wants for me, but realistically, I love every single thing about this game. Every moment, every interaction, every detail, every emotion invoked out of it. It filled an important part of my childhood. Whether I was coping or dealing with something, I always came back to this game for more. And it really feels like every time I came back, new memories are made and good yet old ones fill my thoughts once again. This is why Majora's Mask is my favorite game of all time. I don't even think I can give this game a ranking because it would be like triple, quadruple S tier. I love the game that much, despite its flaws. And that's it. I think that's the end of the video. I think I covered everything that I wanted to. Maybe it wasn't perfect, but I appreciate you guys watching this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up and comment down below what you guys want to see next. I'm thinking of doing Genshin or maybe even Minecraft. I don't know, but I think that is it. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace.